My name is Kendra Gaither, and I serve as president of the U.S. Africa Business Center at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And I also have the honor of serving as executive director of the U.S. South Africa Business Council. And so it's on behalf of all of those designations that I am pleased to welcome you here, Excellency, to this evening's discussion. I'd like to honor and recognize all the distinguished members of your delegation, both here on the head table, but around the room today for this important discussion. I'd like to acknowledge the Honorable Parks Tao, Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, but also all of the DTIC members who have been part of making tonight's engagement possible. I'd like to acknowledge the Honorable Minister Chikunga, the Minister of Women, Youth, and People with Disabilities. It's my pleasure to welcome you. I'd like to welcome the Deputy Minister of Communications and extend warm greetings as well, and thank you for being with us this evening. We're joined by a host of distinguished leaders from Presidency, from ministries across the South African government, including the honorable representatives here in the United States, the Perm Rep, the Consul General here in New York, the Charge of the South Africa Embassy in Washington, D.C., the Honorable Premier of Western Cape, Honorable Alan Winde, and I'd like to also acknowledge partners at AmCham South Africa, Business Unity South Africa, leaders of the B20 Secretariat, and executives of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. It's my pleasure to acknowledge and offer special appreciation to our sponsors for this evening's dinner, Standard Bank and APSA. I'm pleased to welcome distinguished titans of industry from across South Africa and the United States for what is going to be a robust partnership dinner. And I'm thrilled to welcome you for this discussion on the U.S.-South Africa commercial partnership and today's theme, an agenda for advancing economic ties. Your Excellency, as you know, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is the world's largest business advocacy organization, with millions of companies operating in all 50 states and more than 120 countries. And we work to promote free enterprise, representing members of all sizes, sectors, and regions. It's something we've been proud to do for more than 113 years. And it's something that we do with partners across the United States and across the world through our network of American Chambers of Commerce. And so I do offer a special welcome to the board chair of the American Chamber of Commerce in South Africa, Mr. Kuseni Dlamini, for being here with us and being a strong partner. At the Chamber, we are champions of a stronger, more vibrant commercial partnership between the nations of Africa and the United States. And that means advocating for increased focus on expanding trade and investment and our ties with Africa, including the reauthorization of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, convening public-private dialogues, just like this one, to advance policy recommendations, highlight opportunities, and address challenges that might prevent a closer relationship. With nearly 600 U.S. companies operating in South Africa, there's no economic relationship more foundational than the ties that the United States and South Africa have and share together. Thank you. I think that's worthy of recognition always. As top trading partners with more than $26 billion in trade and goods and services just last year, I think we can all agree this is a vital relationship that merits dedicated attention. This is why we're pleased to co-convene tonight's exchange and this executive dialogue to expand the commercial relationship and tangible areas where we can work together as business communities, working hand in hand with government to advance our shared prosperity. In 2022, Business Unity South Africa, the American Chamber of Commerce of South Africa, and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce together made a commitment that we formalized through an MOU to formalize our long-standing collaboration. And we did so alongside a commitment to redouble our efforts to accelerate economic growth through business linkages. We've had the opportunity to grow this collaboration deeper still through South Africa's historic G20 presidency, for which we commend you, sir, and to expand our work with BUSA and BLSA as B20 co-chairs alongside the Chamber and our members, as we are founding members of the B20 institution itself. We're proud to be bringing a delegation to Johannesburg in November to participate in the B20 summit, headed by our president and CEO of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Suzanne Clark. And we're coming to build a bridge of growth and opportunity, not just in our bilateral partnership, but a bridge to the U.S. presidency. Expanding commercial partnership happens one deal, one investment at a time. And that's what this gathering represents, executive leaders from across South Africa and the United States who are dedicated to building those ties. And I'd like to just point out that in order to do that best connection, one deal, one partner at a time, you need strong financial support. And so I'm proud to recognize one such partner, which is Standard Bank, a proud member of the U.S. Africa Business Center, a platinum sponsor for this event, and a proud contributor to a healthy trade and investment partnership between South Africa and the United States. At this time, I want to recognize the CEO for Africa Regions, Mr. Lungisa Fusile of Standard Bank, who will bring greetings and talk a little bit more, Your Excellency, about why this moment and this opportunity for public-private dialogue is so critical. Thank you, sir.
Your Excellency, Mr. President Ramaphosa, Minister Tau, I've heard Minister Chikunga being greeted. I've not seen her, but to save myself from trouble, I acknowledge her. I've seen Deputy Minister Kungubele here. I've also seen Premier Winder in the room. Our American friends, Kindra Gaitha, the President of the U.S. Africa Business Center, and Senior Vice President of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. We've got business leaders from South Africa, including our bosses in the B20, officials from our government, clients, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. As Standard Bank, we are delighted, immensely proud, and indeed truly honored to be associated with this very auspicious event. We do not take the honor for granted, even if we are a platinum sponsor. Of course, it is quite symbolic that we are gathering tonight on such a special day for South Africa, our Heritage Day, a time when we celebrate our nation's diversity, which is very rich and vibrant. We celebrate our history. It is also a pleasure, Mr. President, to see such a diverse group of people gathered here tonight. As many of you in the room would know, our bank has got a very long and deep history with the continent, which happens to have started in my home province, the Eastern Cape, in the city now known as Gqeberha, formerly called Port Elizabeth. And of course, we've recently opened the doors to our first branch in Egypt, which is the 21st country of presence for our bank on the African continent. We are immensely proud of that development. It therefore goes without saying, as Kendra was indicating, that our bank is the natural partner to take American businesses along on a journey as they explore economic opportunities in our continent and, of course, elsewhere. At Standard Bank Group, we continually work to forge connections between South African businesses and the globe. We see ourselves as a vital link between our continent, with the massive population of 1.2 billion, very large GDP of 3.4 trillion US dollars. Since 1994, when our country attained its freedom, our bank set up office here in New York, a clear affirmation of our commitment to strengthening ties between our country and the United States. Of course, we use our convening power to bring together multinationals, investors, regulators, policymakers, and business leaders. Like today, people who oversee substantial pools of capital with our continental leaders. Our efforts to facilitate flows of capital and help structure deals that are mutually beneficial between our two countries is unrelenting. For example, over the past decade, we have supported the South Africa Tomorrow event, which is normally held here in New York, a very prestigious investment platform that showcases South Africa and Africa, our economic opportunities, that is, on the continent to investors here in the US. Our New York office hosts South African businesses aiming to explore and connect with the US market and vice versa. These are pivotal opportunities that enable businesses and investors to engage with South Africa and Africa and invest in ways that are mutually beneficial for both our country and the US, and of course in our continent. You may wonder then, how do we do this? We do this because we're a full service bank equipped with the robust balance sheet of 3.4 trillion rand, an extensive suite of products and services, and most importantly, a 50,000 strong personnel drawn from each one of the countries where our operations are. So we've got professionals on the ground in each one of the 21 countries that I mentioned, and of course offices in the US, London, and Beijing, who walk the ground and hold the hands of investors to make sure that we make the necessary and meaningful connections. These valuable connections are enabled by foundational agreements such as the AfCFTA and, of course, the Africa Growth Opportunity Act, which sometimes appears to be under threat recently. These, of course, agreements exemplify the supportive policy and regulatory environment that makes strengthened trade, pipelines, and continental connections possible. It is for this reason that we took a lot of pride, Sim and I, when we were asked to chair the B20 Finance and Infrastructure Task Group, an effort we so admirably organized under the auspices of our business unity, South Africa, the leadership of which is represented by Mr. Mgojo and Cass here. I wish to affirm that South Africa stands poised and eager to forge meaningful partnerships with each one of you. Our nation's dynamism and openness present abundant opportunities for collaboration and mutual advancement. As the American Chamber of Commerce prepares to take on the critical role of leading the B20 later this year and onwards, we offer our heartfelt congratulations and unwavering support to them on the journey ahead, in the same way that Brazil had done that to us. At our bank, we remain steadfastly committed to actively participating in the vital work that will continue and we will continue and partner with you as you contribute to Africa's growth and, of course, the growth of the world. I thank you.
His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to rise on protocol already established, or as we would say back home, all protocol observed. Mr. President, the United States remains South Africa's second largest trading partner globally, while South Africa continues to serve as the second largest African destination to US exports. This underscores the critical importance of our bilateral relationship, both as a platform for two-way trade and as a gateway into the broader African market. Yet challenges persist. The proposed 30% tariff on selected South African exports, along with existing Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum, risks undermining the competitiveness of key sectors and benefits provided under the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act. It is therefore critical that we work together to ensure predictable preferential access for South African products, particularly as we seek to expand high-value exports and diversify beyond traditional commodities. Ladies and gentlemen, I should say that we have spent the past few weeks in intensive engagement with the US government to seek resolution to matters related to reciprocal trade between our respective countries. We had the opportunity to meet with the United States Trade Representative last week at the back of engagements between our respective teams to intensely look at a draft text on what would constitute the reciprocal trade agreement between South Africa and the US. Based on that and the engagements that we've had, the US undertook to provide a revised text for consideration. We have since received the revised text and are currently engaging with sister departments and stakeholders on the text so that within the next 2 weeks we're able to respond. And at that point, the intention is that the negotiations would start in earnest to reach a solution. Many people ask me as I arrived here, how far are we? And is there a glimmer of hope? My standard response, Mr. President, is I'm cautiously optimistic. But I should say that the discussions were cordial, the discussions were productive, and there's a commitment on both sides to find a solution and to move us forward. Ladies and gentlemen, this evening we have the privilege of hearing from President Cyril Ramaphosa, a leader who has consistently championed economic growth, industrialization, and investment as the cornerstone of South Africa's development. Under his leadership, South Africa continues to position itself as a reliable, forward-looking partner for the United States, one that offers partnerships that leverage innovation, digital transformation, and sustainable growth. His steadfast dedication to strengthening the US-South Africa relationship ensures that our engagements are purposeful, strategic, and designed to unlock the full potential of bilateral trade and investment. Under the President's guidance, South Africa is not only deepening commercial ties, but also building the skills, technological capabilities, and infrastructure needed for the industries of the future. From green energy and aerospace to agriculture, digital services, and advanced manufacturing, the President's vision is clear. That is to create enduring opportunities that create jobs, enhance industrial capabilities, and strengthen the resilience and competitiveness for both our economies. Ladies and gentlemen, join me as we welcome His Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, to the podium. Mr. President.
Thank you. Let's be seated, please. My dear sister, Kendra Gaita, and my banker, and neighbor, Fuzile, and let me also stand on the protocol that has been established and greet everyone present here tonight, but more particularly to thank you for being here. It's wonderful to see so many of you gathered here, including our lead TV personality, who is hiding right at the back there, Sherwin Bryce Rees. It is an honor really to join all of you this evening in this wonderful dinner, and I wish to begin by acknowledging the depth of the partnership between South Africa and the United States. And all of us will know that this is a relationship that is not only defined by diplomacy, but also is defined by the practical ties that have existed between our two countries, ties of trade, investment, and ties of shared innovation. And as we all know, South Africa, or the United States, is one of South Africa's largest trading partners outside of our beloved continent, Africa. The US is a top source of many things: foreign direct investment, supporting hundreds of thousands of direct and indirect jobs in our economy. As we have heard and as we all know, more than 600 US companies are already invested and are operating, and may I add that profitably and successfully in South Africa. Wonderful things are happening to those companies that operate in South Africa. They are invested in areas as diverse as aerospace, mining and energy, consumer goods, as well as finance. And these investments have built industries. They've created jobs and anchored long-term partnerships that have benefited both our peoples. South Africa is equally proud that some of our own companies have established a footprint or their own footprints in the US, from chemicals and financial services, as we had earlier, to to mining, to hospitality, and to food products. And these firms are essentially ambassadors of our entrepreneurship and our entrepreneurial spirit. They are also ambassadors of our innovation and our global competitiveness as a country. We have in our midst a number of leading South African companies and business leaders. Kendra, you call them titans. And yes, there are titans as I look around this table, this room tonight. They are here and they are eager to engage with their US counterparts to explore new areas of collaboration, of joint ventures and investment. In fact, they are hungry for that type of engagement. And we see this engagement today not only as an opportunity to deepen commercial ties, but also as a platform to address what I would call the broader strategic imperatives that bind our two countries and two economies together. Now, these imperatives include ensuring resilient supply chains, advancing clean energy transition, securing access to critical minerals for the industries of the future, and fostering inclusive growth that creates jobs for young people in both our countries. From our own point of view as South Africans, we do not take the relationship between South Africa and the United States for granted. We value the trust that American companies continue to place in South Africa. And we are committed to ensuring that this partnership continues to grow. For the investments that they make in South Africa, in our view, is a great vote of confidence in our country, in what our country can offer to their businesses. But it should also be seen in broader perspective, that it is a vote of confidence in the continued of good relations between South Africa and the United States. We also recognize that the world is changing. New challenges have emerged in our trade relationship, not least the reciprocal tariffs recently imposed on South African exports, as Minister Tau was saying. Now, these measures have in many ways already disrupted supply chains and created uncertainty for both our exporters and American importers. The reality is that such measures do not only affect one side, they ripple right across industries and communities in both our countries. South Africa wishes to deal with these issues constructively, as we are doing now. We've been engaged in these constructive engagements over some time, and we now are entering into the more serious and constructive type of negotiations, as Minister Tau has said, where there's the exchange of text and hoping that it will all culminate in an agreement. Minister Tau is usually a very cautious person, and he's cautiously optimistic. I am immensely optimistic. Now, we understand the concerns that have been raised by the United States and are willing to engage to find solutions that are mutually beneficial. And in some areas, we may not entirely agree with each other, but that is really the hallmark of negotiations, that you negotiate with those that you may not really find easy agreement with on certain issues, but you negotiate to find consensus. And we are hopeful that that consensus will emerge. Our goal is simple: to sustain and expand trade flows, to keep our companies competitive, and to ensure that consumers and workers in both our countries benefit from our partnership and our relationship. At the same time, we face the urgent matter of the extension of the, or possible extension of the African Growth and Opportunity Act, which expires later this month. AGOA has been the foundation of US-Africa trade for nearly a quarter of a century. In South Africa, it has supported jobs from the auto sector to farms to high-tech manufacturing hubs. And in some ways, that is why Premier Alan Winde is here, because the exports from farms that we bring to the United States mostly go through his province. So he's here like a chicken hen, trying to guard the eggs, and he usually does that extremely well. The expiry of AGOA would not only undermine the gains that we have made, but also remove the link to the generalized system of preferences, which has been so critical to many of our exporters. For this reason, I appeal for those of you who have influence to the ear of, or the ears, should I say 1 ear or 2 ears of the, I should say 2 ears, of advocating for the renewal. And we have been, during the course of our presence here in New York, we've been meeting quite a number of people who are either legislators, who are linked to the executive or to the administration, and we've been urging them that it is in our collective interest as South Africa, indeed Africa as a whole, and the United States, that AGOA should be extended. So I do make this appeal that raise your voices and bring about your influence that it should be so. Predictable preferential access to the US market is vital not only for South Africa, but to American companies who depend on reliable imports. Our conversation this evening must also look beyond just the immediate challenges. Africa is rising. The African Continental Free Trade Area is opening new horizons, new opportunities, creating a market of 1.4 billion people. You will realize, firstly, that I just increased the population by 200 million. You said 1.2 billion. This goes to show how optimistic I am. South Africa is ideally positioned as your gateway into this market. And indeed, this is a fact that is known globally, that South Africa, being the most industrialized country on our continent, and being so well positioned between the various oceans that surround our continent, that it is indeed a gateway into the African market. We have the infrastructure, we have the financial systems, the legal and regulatory frameworks, and of course the regional linkages to serve as a platform for US companies to expand into the rest of our beloved continent. South Africa is a country of 62 million people, but it is also an entry point into a continental market of immense potential. As a country, we are in the process of modernizing our economy, of reforming the various levers that drive our economy. We're addressing the structural bottlenecks and diversifying our exports. We're addressing structural issues that have been blocking the growth that we should have been having in our economy. We are driving industrialization so that we can move beyond raw commodities into higher-end value-added goods and services. For U.S. investors, this means opportunities not only in established sectors, but in new and dynamic industries. We see particular promise in areas such as agriculture, which has been really driving growth in our economy in the past few quarters, in agro-processing as well, and high-value food production. There are opportunities in automotives where we are transiting to electric vehicles and to battery production. In green energy, our renewable energy endowments and platinum reserves offer unrivaled potential. There is great potential in digital and technology-driven services where our young and skilled workforce is driving innovation. We see opportunity in pharmaceuticals and healthcare, where we have the manufacturing capacity to strengthen global supply chains. In aerospace and defense, our advanced capabilities can complement U.S. leadership in this area. Across all these areas, our focus is on value addition. It is also on sustainable job creation and the development of the skills of our young people. This is where our partnership can make the greatest difference. And I want to encourage greater collaboration between the United States companies and our universities, our research institutions, and training programs so that we can jointly build the skills and innovation capacity needed for the future. Now, to provide structure and continuity to these efforts, I am pleased to welcome the establishment of a South Africa-US Trade Investment Forum. Its inaugural session will take place next year in South Africa alongside our South Africa Investment Conference, which Minister Tau is in the process of putting together. Now, this forum that will be established will allow us to engage more systematically to address obstacles as they arise and to pursue opportunities in a coordinated fashion. And I wish to acknowledge the role of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce as it prepares to take over the B20 chairship. And in this regard, I'm hoping that we will not be handing over the chairship of this to an empty chair. You will be present. I have been saying to President Trump that I'd like him to come to the G20 Leaders Summit so that he must sit beside me, and on the other side must be President Lula. And if he's there, then it saves me the trouble of handing over the chairship to an empty chair, not from an empty to an empty chair. So I've been stressing that to him, and he is in deep consideration of this. As you know, he thinks very deeply about issues, so he's thinking about this. So I hope it does happen. Now, during our hosting of B20, we focused on inclusive growth, support for small and medium enterprises, the digital transition, and the green economy. And in this regard, I want to applaud South African business leaders for having taken on the task of leading the B20, having been handed the responsibility from the business people in Brazil. They have been doing a fantastic job. And many of you will know, of course, that in moving towards the culmination of the G20 process, ending with the leaders' meeting, we will have held up to 130 meetings. And up to date hereof, 100 meetings have been held, 30 meetings or 29 meetings now remain, with the final one being the Leaders' Summit. The business community in South Africa has led the process of the B20 extremely well. And they've had the courage and the commitment to address a number of interesting issues, and some of them quite difficult, and we thank them for having done so. We encourage continuity in the handling of these priorities they've been dealing with, as they speak to the challenges that all our economies face. This evening, my message is simple. We want to secure partnerships that bring more U.S. investment into South Africa, into renewable energy projects, digital infrastructure, advanced manufacturing, and the green hydrogen economy. We want to see collaboration in life sciences, in health innovation, areas where we have strong capabilities and untapped potential. And we want to build deeper partnerships in financial services, in mining, technology, and automotive manufacturing, and positioning South Africa as both a reliable production hub and a launch pad into the rest of the African continent. And at the same time, we want to ensure that South African companies expand their presence here in the United States, forging stronger links in areas like food and beverages, retail, creative industries, and fintech. These are companies that can add value, that can create jobs, been here in the United States, and deepen cultural and business ties between our countries. We do believe strongly that the relationship between South Africa and the United States is not defined solely by trade figures or investment flows, important as they are. It is also defined by a shared commitment to innovation, to entrepreneurship, and to sustainable development and to inclusive prosperity. So this engagement is therefore about building a partnership that looks to the future, a partnership that is resilient and that adapts to the challenges of our time. As I conclude, I had a most wonderful engagement just before coming here with Professor Joseph Stiglitz and a number of other experts who are either in various research institutions and universities discussing the issue of inequality. We've asked Professor Joseph Stiglitz to lead a committee that is going to look into the question of inequality across a much broader canvas, global inequality. And he was, together with his colleagues, telling me that they will be presenting a report that will deal with the issue of inequality right across the world, and also deal with what continues to drive inequality. And he said that artificial intelligence, for instance, and various pandemics are now causes of inequality in a number of countries. And I said South Africa has been the repository of the worst inequalities that there are in the world. And the ghosts of our past, colonialism and apartheid, continue to dog the future of many of our people in South Africa. And I thanked him for having accepted this task. He, being a Nobel laureate, is a person who is well placed to do this work for us. So I expect that this G20 that we are going to is going to be meaningful in depth and in breadth, because we are going to be dealing with existential matters in the lives of many people, not only dealing with economies, but also issues that affect ordinary people and their livelihoods. And I'm glad that even business people are also beginning to deal with those types of issues as part of the whole G20 process. So I'm delighted to be here. I've spent a number of days here and interacting with a number of companies. We've had deep, meaningful conversations with various US companies that are invested in South Africa, and those that are also interested in investing in our country. So our participation here in the US, New York, and even beyond New York, because a number of our ministers are going to be and have been spending quite a lot of time going through the country, the US, meeting a number of people and talking about our country and trying to demystify these myths that are spread around about South Africa, and also telling people that the most beautiful country in the world is indeed South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. As someone who has had the privilege of traveling to South Africa for more than 20 years, I can attest to South Africa being the most beautiful country. And in recognition of your question, I can also attest we will be in Johannesburg in November to experience your beautiful country during the B20. You will not speak to an empty chair. I want to thank you for your leadership, Mr. President, and for warmly welcoming this part of the conversation, but the larger collaboration for a private sector-led process to strengthen the South Africa-US relationship. And I'm privileged to be standing here, but I'm not standing in this process alone. Having the pleasure of working with MOU partnerships, our MOU partners at AmCham South Africa and Business Unity South Africa, we want to continue to do our part, leaning into the action plan of that MOU to bring forward the forum that you mentioned to ensure that there is dedicated attention to the partnership. And so at this time, I would like to cede the floor to my colleagues one by one. I think we're going to have a colleague bring microphones so that they can address you directly as well about the opportunity to collaborate. And we'll first hear from the President of the Board of the American Chamber of Commerce, South Africa, Mr. Kuseni Dlamini, who will have the first word. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President Cyril Ramaphosa, it's an honor and privilege to be here. Also want to recognize Honorable Minister Park Stow, our Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, and our Premier of the Western Cape, the Honorable Alan Winde, as well as our Minister of Digital Affairs, Minister Mondli Kungubele, and all colleagues that are here, and all protocol observed. Strengthening South Africa's trade and investment partnership with the United States, Mr. President, is not just a diplomatic priority, it is an economic necessity. Dare I say, it is in our national economic interest. The US remains one of the world's most powerful engines of growth, innovation, and investment. Closer ties with the US, therefore, mean more opportunities for our South African businesses, more jobs for our people back in South Africa, and greater access to technologies and markets that will shape the future. South Africa is the gateway to Africa, a continent of 1.4 billion people with immense potential. By deepening our economic relationship with the US, we can attract greater investment into key sectors such as renewable energy, as you have highlighted already, advanced manufacturing, digital technologies, and agriculture. These investments bring not only capital, but also skills, knowledge, and global competitiveness to the economy and society of South Africa. To unlock this potential, Mr. President, we must build on the African Growth and Opportunity Act, reduce barriers to doing business, and provide a stable policy environment that encourages long-term partnerships. This is not about short-term gains. It is about South Africa securing its rightful place in the global economy, and indeed ensuring that trade and investment with the US becomes a foundation for inclusive growth and prosperity. Mr. President, I believe that the time to act is right now. Together, let us seize this opportunity to transform our economy and strengthen one of our most important global partnerships. The American Chamber of Commerce in South Africa represents about 600 companies that invest in South Africa. And I'd like to underscore the point that Minister Tau made earlier on, that actually the benefit is two-way trade, which also means, Minister Tau, that it's also two-way benefit. We are currently busy, Mr. President, with an exercise to quantify and document the benefit that the United States gets from having its companies, or indeed our members who are American companies, invested in South Africa, so that the conversation can be fact-based and can be evidence-based, and we can spotlight the benefits that the US gets also from this investment. We also know that we have 22 South African companies invested in this economy in the USA. One of those companies is Aspen Pharmacare, a company that I'm proud to be a chairman of. We invest in this country, we employ Americans, we contribute to supply chains in this country and contribute to growth in the USA. We're not the only South African company. There are many others like Sasol, Standard Bank, as we've had earlier on, Isibanye Stillwater, and many others. And I think we do need to have a very comprehensive and balanced conversation. So therefore, Mr. President, we applaud and commend all your efforts to try and reset the relationship between the US and South Africa. And if you succeed, we're all going to succeed. And we wish you very well. And we're also as optimistic as you are that we can indeed achieve a step change in that regard. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Kuseni. Now we will hear from his neighbor and our counterpart in this endeavor, the dual-hatted chair of the board of Business Unity South Africa, but also the co-chair of B20, Mr. Mgolisi Mgojo.
Good evening, everybody. Your Excellency, Mr. President Cyril Ramaphosa, and I will just say all protocols observed. I'm sure everybody's hungry. As the BUSA President, Mr. President, I just want to stress the importance of private sector-led collaboration to strengthen the South Africa and US commercial partnership. Business on both sides recognize that the reforms foreign companies seek are the same reforms domestic firms are calling for. That is why partnership between government and business is very important. As has already been said, 2 years ago, BUSA and AmCham, South Africa, had the honor of hosting you, Mr. President, in dialogue on how to expand business linkages. Tonight, we want to rededicate ourselves to that partnership alongside our colleagues at AmCham. We are united in wanting to strengthen this commercial relationship for the benefit of both economies and our people. Yes, we do face volatility in global trade and strains in our bilateral relationship. Tariffs may not hit South Africa hard at the macro level, but sectors like agriculture and automotives are already under stress. And so we are engaging closely with Minister Tau, and we are so happy to hear that although he's cautiously optimistic, at least you, Mr. President, you are much more optimistic that we will get the job done. Still, opportunities remain strong. As already been indicated, some 600 plus firms already operate in South Africa. There's a long history between South African business and American business in South Africa, and which now shows that investment in the US by South African companies are standing now at about 4.5 billion, and US investment in South Africa is around 7.5. Add fast-growing tourism and South Africa's role as a gateway into the African continental free trade area, and the potential for expansion is clear. At home, as you are aware, we are making progress through reforms in electricity, logistics, and other reforms, while there are structural changes under Operation Vulindlela. And these reforms support both local and foreign investors by creating a level and a more predictable environment. Businesses in both countries are asking for clarity, predictable policy, less red tape, transformation rules that open the space for all participants to play in the economy. This is not only about bilateral ties. Through our collaboration with AmCham and our joint engagement in the B20, we see how US and South African businesses can work together on global challenges, building common understanding and a common cause. And I must say that the support that we have received and the participation that we have seen throughout this B20 engagement has been at a level that you even wonder whether we actually do have issues amongst our countries. That's the kind of participation and support we got from the American companies in South Africa. And for that, I just want to say thank you, because these recommendations are indeed something that's going to be very transformative in how we deal with some of these challenges that's been highlighted. And so, in closing, yes, our governments may not see each other eye to eye from time to time. However, business must keep building trust, deepen linkages, and creating opportunities. A stronger private sector participation will deliver jobs, growth, and prosperity for both countries. At the same time, we must work with government to tackle issues of unemployment, poverty, ensure that a just transition does not leave anyone behind. And that is how we build a resilient US-South Africa commercial partnership for the long term. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much for your rededication, for your commitment, and for an expression of optimism. It truly is a response to His Excellency. Businesses are optimistic, and we do this work, building opportunity, creating jobs, because we're optimistic about the impact we can have. I'm also optimistic and quite assured that all of you are hungry. So at this time, I do want to bring the public portion of this program to a close. Thank our colleagues from the media for joining to hear His Excellency's rousing remarks. And I want to both declare the door closed, but the plates open, so that you may begin your meals, and we will transition to a more interactive discussion at this time.